with Ryan Ries. This is Live with Ryan Ries. Call now 1-888-564-6173 or post your questions using the hashtag #LiveRyanReese on his Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.
Tonight we have a wild, amazing, supernatural show for you tonight. We got one of my good friends out from Miami Tattoo Co., Amor. Tonight we're going to talk about her story with rape, sexual abuse, drugs, alcohol, and homosexuality and how she came out of it. But before we even get into that, I want to kind of talk about what she does now, because I know this show's going to get crazy. I mean, it's going to get heated. I've heard her speak before, and I want to talk about what she does now so we don't have to come back to it at the end, because I hope by the end of the conversation, we're talking about purely Jesus and how people can find God and how they can be transformed. So, More, welcome to the show with Sean McKeehan.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for having me here.
Really quick.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got a phone call from Pastor Pedro out in Miami, like last year sometime.
Yeah, last year, April. All this happened in April, yeah.
Okay. I get a phone call, and the phone call is, there's a girl in Miami that it's a youth, and she's struggling with, cutting and different suicidal thoughts and different things, like many people in today's culture struggle with. Would you, Ryan, get on the plane? He's like, I'll pay for it. Can you get on the plane and just come out and meet up with her? There's this band playing, Korn's playing out here, and I know you guys are friends. She loves that band, and maybe you could use that as an opportunity to talk to her. I said, book it. So I dropped everything I was doing, flew across the United States, the next day or the day after, and I met you. Yeah. You showed up with this girl, and we talked, we hit it off, and then later on, I found about your story and just about what you're doing. Tell us a little bit about what you got going on in Miami right now.
Well, like you said, Miami Tattoo Co., which is the tattoo studio that I own. But pretty much the way that came to be was when I found out about human trafficking happening here in the United States. I didn't even know it was happening here, honestly. For me, it was happening overseas, the movie Taken. Mm-hmm. I got involved in that, started doing research on the End It movement, finding out more and more about it, and pretty soon into my kind of like anti-human trafficking activism I was doing, I found out that the pimps were actually tattooing their victims.
Now, what do you mean? Like what kind of tattooing? Is it their name or?
I've seen barcodes. I've seen like the name of the pimp, the name of the squad, or the stable. They're like stables, is what they call them.
That's crazy.
Just different things like that. Dollar signs on the hands, necks, and stuff.
You were saying something about the eyeballs or something?
Yeah, I ended up finding out about a 13-year-old girl that had just gotten rescued in Miami, actually. And this is 3 years ago in March. And what caught me was that the story was that she had his name tattooed on her eyelid. So he forced her to get a tattoo, however they did it. And that's kind of like where I said, okay, this is how I'm going to get involved. I met up with a guy named Chris Baker out in Chicago. He has a ministry called Ink 180, and he's really like the first tattoo artist to do this thing. He's the first one. Now I think we've got like 15 nationwide. Wow. And we're trying to kind of like expand it more.
He came to the Whosoever's event a while ago.
Yeah, that guy's legit. I love that guy to death, man. He's probably the reason why I'm doing this now. So I found out about him. With them. Yeah. I found out about him, contacted him, told him, hey, this is who I am. This is what's going on in my life. This is what I'm doing, and I want to, be your hands and feet in Miami. Mm-hmm. And he's like, awesome. Yeah. Hey, so where's your tattoo studio? And I'm like, dude, I don't have one, but I'm going to get one.
So you wanted to get involved with this thing, and you don't even have a tattoo studio.
I didn't. And I end up meeting the previous owner of Miami Tattoo Co., because I went over to, he actually made tattoo machines. So I went over there just to kind of check out for the machines.
Yeah.
And we start talking. I start telling him what's going on. He steps out. His assistant comes back in and is like, hey, we want to talk to you because we're actually thinking of selling this place, but we haven't put it on the market because we just wanted the right person. Mm-hmm. And that's 30 days later. I'm signing, putting all the money down.
Is this right here on South Beach, like in that little party zone, right?
In the party zone.
Wow, that's like the mix right there.
Dude, it's in the. What's so crazy is that my shop is at 1218 Washington. Across the street is 1235 Washington. And I used to moonlight bartending, security manager in that club in 1994. And I'd come out of there at 6 o'clock in the morning, just wasted high.
Yes.
And with no hope in life, coming out of there. And now today I'm across the street having church, meeting those people coming out, and we'll talk about that later. But it's crazy.
I've talked about you and Pedro and Calvary Kendall down there in Miami.
Yeah.
And this is the girl I was talking about that has a tattoo studio, and they do tattoo removal for those girls, and it's also a tattoo shop as well. But it turns into a church on Sunday morning.
Yep.
So people come piled out of club, probably grab a falafel or whatever they eat down there, or some Cuban beans and rice, and then you guys just pull them into the tattoo studio and church. And you guys did a webcast at first.
Yeah.
And then it just turned into a church. So they have now they have a pastor going down there, and you can see him on Instagram. That it's like a legit church every Sunday.
Bro, it was crazy. We start streaming in the morning service, and then Pastor Pedro, I start texting him, and I'm like, dude, this guy was high on Molly. We found him on the street. He's here, and he just got saved. And I'm sending him pictures of the guy getting saved. So Pastor Pedro gets all, his heart is to see people get saved.
Yes.
So he starts on the webcast going, and I want to say hi to a bunch of crazies over there at Miami Tattoo Co. And everybody's like, what? So that goes on, and finally one day he's like, hey, and all you guys out there, I just want you to know, next week I'll be there live. And we're on the floor.
That's amazing.
And ever since then it's been a live service. There's a live worship. It's kind of like an acoustic version, but we have a worship leader, guitarist, a cajon.
Yeah.
And we've got pastors on rotation, and we do everything. We do just an entire service. We have our run sheet. We have it's evolved.
Yeah.
But we have our run sheet. We have our pro presenter up on the wall, confidence monitor. I mean, it's legit, and it's this, not a big place. We throw down rugs, it's just...
It's Calvary Sobe, right?
Calvary Sobe.
SOBE on Instagram.
Yep.
Peep game. Look at the photos.
Yeah,
it's
dude,
happening.
it's happening. And people are getting saved.
Yeah.
And now we've got this, it's crazy. Now we've got this homeless ministry. They've been coming on and off, but about 2 months ago, one day we get 5 homeless people, and even with their Bible, and it's funny because they're coming in drunk. And this one girl just stumbles up to the platform and hands the preacher a note, and he's like, okay, I'll be right with you. Okay, right after we'll talk. And at the end, it's this handwritten flyer that somebody's distributing in the homeless community. You can come meet Jesus at 1218 Washington Avenue,
way.
Sundays at 9. Yeah,
so
it's
some
insane.
homeless guy that's a Christian that is insane.
Yeah, dude,
awesome.
It's insane because we give them, we've got coffee and food, and they'll start coming and just getting the food and leaving, and we're like, yeah, man, it's cool, man. No, nothing
pressure,
attached, no pressure, bro. If you want to come in, and they start coming in, but yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Great vision.
And then they'll throw down Phil Meon, who I adore. He came and preached amazing word, and then the one homeless guy starts just trash talking him down, and he just comes off the platform, starts praying with the guy. It was amazing. It's you actually interactive church. Because the preacher's there, and they're like, yeah, no, that's not true.
And the preacher's only 2 feet away.
Yeah, the preacher's right there. So it's pretty awesome. It's really neat, man. I love it. I'm excited.
Okay, so you got the tattoo thing going on, and you're working with the human trafficking.
Human trafficking,
Tell me a little bit about that too.
Okay, well, so what we offer is those tattoos that are put on them, free cover-ups or free removals. The removal is a lengthy process. I do the removals.
How does that work?
It's called Tattoo Vanish, and pretty much I'll go over the tattoo, the area of the tattoo that they want removed, open up the epidermis, because the ink for the tattoo is actually down in the dermis. It doesn't stay in the epidermis, but I open up the epidermis, and then I apply an all-natural product. And what that does during the healing is it starts getting the ink out of the body, so it kind of pushes it out. But it depends a lot on their aftercare. So that's why it takes a long time. It could take a year, and a half, depending on the tattoo. So I'll do that. I'll do the removals. Yeah. A lot of the survivors, though, they kind of want that mark off, so they tend to do a cover-up. So all my guys are available to me to do the cover-ups for free.
What's interesting, she was telling me that people that get tattoo removal with a laser, it pushes the ink into the body, to the blood. So imagine people are doing the laser, but it's pushing it in. What she does is it pulls the ink out.
Yeah.
That's crazy thinking having that much ink in your system, in your blood system.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of gnarly.
Yeah. And then it eventually breaks out and you pee it out with the laser, but it stays in there a long time, working its way through your blood system.
That's gnarly. Okay. Well, you got a lot of rad things. God obviously did some radical things in your life. So now let's go back to the beginning, because a lot of people that are listening, they know someone, or the majority of people have family members that are in the homosexual lifestyle. And, I was just out of high school a couple of days ago, and I was meeting with the high school kids, and I asked them, this is a public school. It's called Patriot. It's in Riverside. And I said, hey, so what's up with the whole transgender thing going on in school? They said, oh, yeah, we have a couple. I was like, there's a couple transgenders that go to your guys' high school? They're like, yeah, there's a couple. And I'm like, okay, what about, how about just being like a homosexual? And they go, yeah, there's probably like 10 to 15 of those. It's a little bit more. And I go, well, what about bisexual? They go, oh, yeah, that's huge. So many people. I go, yeah, all this stuff's trendy. And they're like, yeah, I think it's trendy. And then I go, have you guys heard of pansexual? And they're like, oh, yeah. I go, what is that? Because I heard about it, but I didn't know what it was. They said pansexual basically means you're into anyone. Anything. Anyone, anything. It's like you're not bisexual. You're just kind of like anything goes. So gnarly. Now, this is in a public high school. I'm talking to freshmen that are educating me on this stuff. So this is a huge topic in culture. Obviously, it's all around us. And there's nothing new under the sun, right? Like it's almost it's nothing new. This stuff's been going on. I mean, I know back in Leviticus, God gave a commandment. It says, no man with man. He broke it down. There's no word that says homosexual, but he even he knew that, people were going to say, it doesn't say homosexuals in the Old Testament. It says man with man,
Well, all kinds of form of sexuality that is against what God created it for, it talks about.
Yeah.
Because in that same text in Leviticus, animals, you're like, wow, why is he?
Bestiality?
That's always tripped me out. But it's because God takes everything into account. He knows the heart of man. The Bible says the heart is deceitfully wicked. And man left to himself can go in very dark times and dark things and lifestyles. And that's why we see in our culture today, like you said, nothing's new under the sun. As we look at our culture and our world today, it is getting more corrupt, no doubt. It's been corrupt for many thousands of years, but we're definitely, I believe, living in the last times, and we're going to see things continue to increase in the rise. There's so much confusion in our culture today, and that's why I'm stoked to have Amor here too, because listening to her story, I think there's a lot of things that are going to be encouraging to the listeners here today.
Yep. And if you just tuned in, you're listening live with Ryan Ries, and I have Amor in studio with co-host Sean McKeehan. Tell us where it all started. Where'd you grow up?
Well, born in Miami, born and raised, and my parents were both immigrants. My dad came from Cuba. He's passed away, but he came from Cuba, and my mom from Honduras. I was born in the mid-'60s, and my parents being young, having 3 kids. My mom worked 3 jobs. My dad worked, but he was a big gambler, so they were rarely home. We were what they call latchkey kids back in the 70s, had the little necklace on with the key so we can get back in pretty much on our own. Very abusive household. My mom, super abusive, like physically abusive. Not the kind of every kid got hit. I mean, whipped. I still have scars on my back from it.
Dang, it was gnarly.
Yeah, gnarly.
Abuse.
Abuse, man. I got locked up in closets, tied up, blindfolded, just
verbal
crazy
abuse,
stuff.
I'm sure too.
Verbal,
which is
mental,
so hard to get over for so many people.
Just crazy stuff. And man, I was so afraid of my mom that when she would come in the house, I literally would poop in my pants, man.
Yeah.
And whenever I would do that, she would grab it like if I was a dog, man, and just push that thing in my face. I mean, that's how bad it was. In that time, I mean, there wasn't, not like today, man. Today's society is so accepting about so many things, which is good and bad. You're seeing a lot more things on TV, a lot more things in magazines and stuff. But, when I was growing up, husbands and wives on TV were slept in separate beds. You didn't see the nudity. You didn't see...
That's a trip.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. You didn't see that kind of stuff. So even child abuse, no one was talking about that. There weren't shows on child abuse or things like that. Teachers weren't looking out for us. At least they weren't for me. And it was still in the time when you get paddled in school. So, the discipline was okay for them. In our case, I mean, I was abused.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the household I grew up in. It was like an every day. My mom worked all night. She'd come home at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're kids. We didn't clean. Yeah, we made a mess. We're little kids, so it was the get up and clean and the beatings, and then we'd go to bed, just really hot from getting beat, and have to go to school the next day, because we were alone a lot.
Yeah,
it opened up the door for abuse, unfortunately. I got molested by like dads in the neighborhood. Like if I would go hang out with their daughters, for whatever reason, the dads would always figure out a way to, molest me. It was crazy.
That's
high school boys. If I'm walking down the street, I get thrown into a car.
How old are you at this time?
6, 7, 8.
No way. That's so crazy.
Yeah. And then the big pivotal point in my life was the 8. By 8, there was this one dude that worked a few shops down from where my mom worked. He was a contractor. And he had come one time over to where my mom worked, and she would bring me every weekend because, she would just bring me to be there with her. And my dad would take care of my brother and sister, but my mom would bring me. And so I met him. So I knew he was someone safe, I guess,
Yeah, friend of the family.
Friend of the family. And one of those days, my mom sent me down the street to go buy some coffee for her customers, and I had to walk by his place, and, he calls me in. And that was the first time that he like raped me. Like this guy raped me, sodomized me. I mean, I'm a little kid.
8 years old?
8 years old, dude. 8 years old. Oh. Yeah, 8 years old. And of course he threatens, don't say nothing to your mom. And she's, she's, shoving, my face.
Yeah,
I ain't gonna tell her.
Yeah.
And I'm being made to feel like if I do, I'm going to get killed.
Yeah, because that was one of the questions I was going to ask you about that. It's like, why didn't you tell your mom when this thing happened? But there's no way.
Nowhere to turn.
Yeah, I couldn't.
You always felt like alone, I'm sure.
I always felt alone. And I couldn't say anything. I mean, it got so bad, it got to a point of where, one day, I'm like looking out the door and the guy's pulling up to my house. And now it's a weekday. So it wasn't even the weekend.
You're by yourself at this point.
Yeah. It wasn't even like that I dreaded the weekend. Like I would cry every Saturday, Sunday morning when my mom would tell me it was time to go, and she told me later on. I mean, I finally was able to tell my mom as a grown up. I mean, there was one point I told her and she just didn't believe me. But when she finally believed me, she was like, oh, no wonder he used to do all this work for free. I was like, really? So he comes to my house and sure enough, he's knocking on the door and I'm like, you got to be kidding. So in my own house, I'm getting raped by this guy.
Prisoner in your own house.
Yeah, crazy. So that goes on. And, I'm now just loner. I don't want to do anything with anybody. I mean, now I'm just like in my own.
Because you got a lot of mental, just because there's a lot of.
I got a lot of mental.
Believe it or not, this happens to a lot of women. And for those ones that are listening that this happened to, so they feel like they're normal, like what was going on in your head at this point? I mean, you're interacting with you have this old guy coming, chasing you down, raping you, and you're this young little kid. Like, what's going on? You can't talk to your parents. You feel alone. I mean,
Dude, I'm honestly, feeling like that was my purpose in life. Like I was born just to get abused. It got to a point sometimes where I would just see like a man coming approaching me, and I knew what was gonna go down, and I would just be like whatever. And like I didn't even fight it. It got to a point where this is just what it is.
So crazy.
It's just what it is. So I became an introvert. And then there was one time when I was 9, like a year later. Now I went from in the 3rd grade, I got tested to be a gifted student, all that stuff. I had all this everything was going to go good, Amor's a gifted student, all this. By the time that happens, 4th grade now, it just goes down. And I remember in the 4th grade, the night before school started, I was so nervous and just scared, and I had gotten beat, and I couldn't sleep, and my mom had beat me because I couldn't sleep. And and she shows up gives me a Valium, my wonderful mother. Gives me a Valium to go to sleep. And what that ends up doing for me is now I felt numb. I didn't feel any pain. And it was so good. And
the one thing that would work.
It turns off your brain, basically. It turns off your mind, basically.
Yeah. And what that ends up doing for me now is now I need that. So I go around looking for my mom's Valium all the time, taking it, drinking. So pretty much 9 years old, 10, I'm already drinking and taking Valium. My mom's never home. They don't even know.
Yeah.
I'm such an introvert and always just so down. They don't find anything odd about that.
Yeah.
Then I get into, as I get older, 10 years old, 11, 12, I'm smoking pot, doing speed, just the drugs just continue.
Starts increasing, yeah.
Just starts increasing, and then still getting abused. So I'm dealing with all this, and then I start as like a defense mechanism, just kind of like just look gnarly all the time, dirty. And I start gaining some weight. I don't think I did it like on purpose. I'm just gaining weight. And then now what ends up happening is when people see me with my mom, they're like, "Ooh, is that a boy? Is that your son or your daughter? You said you had a daughter? That's your son." So now
you're changing the way you look because you don't want dudes to like check you out.
Exactly, yeah. But now people, like grown-ups, they got to be careful of the things they say to kids, man. Grown-ups now are saying that. Are you a boy? So now I'm in my head. Are you a boy?
It starts to affect a lot of
things.
Starts
to affect me, yeah. And of course, I'm not a Christian, so I don't know 2 Corinthians 10. I don't know take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. I don't know that, but I'm letting those thoughts take me captive.
I want to add something. If you just tuned in, you're listening to Live with Ryan Ries. I have Amor in from Miami Tattoo Co. She's talking about her journey out of homosexuality, rape, drugs, alcohol, and sexual abuse. It's a wild story. So when you just said that you started gaining weight and dressing, just being dirty and dressing boyish, I guess, because you didn't want guys to come on to you anymore because every time that happens, it turns into a sexual assault pretty much. Yeah. So now adults are saying, hey, is that your son? Or like, they're calling you a boy. And now you're getting these thoughts. And what's so interesting about that, I met with a girl, their parents brought her to me. She's 12 years old and she's a junior high. And what was going on is she met with me and I said, what's going on? And she's like, I want to become a transgender. And I'm like, well, why would you even, where did that come from? She grew up in the church her whole life. And now she's saying she wants to be a transgender. And basically what happened is she was at school. She's a tomboy, which there's nothing wrong with tomboys.
Nothing wrong with that.
She's a tomboy, so she's not in the dudes yet. Whatevs, right?
Yeah.
She's a tomboy, and they go, oh, you dress like a guy. Oh, you look like a guy. Oh, you're a transgender. So now kids at her school are saying that because it's the new hip thing. So now in her mind, the enemy is doing this work, and now she wants to become transgender.
Yeah.
So now here we go. Nothing new under the sun. 20, 30 years ago, here's Amor.
Absolutely.
In the same situation before transgender became popular. People are saying this, and now this is going on in your brain.
Yeah, it's going on in my brain. It's just in there. It's getting implanted in there. I'm not acting on it, but it's just getting implanted in there. And, so I continue like that, and at 14, my parents got divorced. Even though I'm afraid of my parents, they're still the mom and dad unit. So that was devastating. My mom leaves my dad for another man, has a whole affair, just a big ugly scene.
That's a whole nother nightmare.
Big ugly scene. Yeah. Then we're going the whole from back and forth from one house to another, dealing with just, my dad. It was bad for him. And then coming over to my mom's, and my stepdad's just a jerk. He's no longer my stepdad, but he's just a jerk. And this is 1980, and he's a drug dealer. So all that Scarface, Miami Vice stuff, I'm experiencing.
So that's real?
Yeah, that's real. That's real. So he's got kilos of cocaine in the cocaine room, and so now I get exposed to cocaine. So again, by the time I'm 15 years old, just again drugs, alcohol. With my stepdad, my dad ends up just moving away. He just couldn't handle it. It was the first Friday this ever happens. I'm 15 years old, and my mom comes over, and she's like, "Hey, Amor, you gotta find a place to go." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Yeah, he doesn't want you here on weekends. He said Monday through Friday is cool, but Friday night you gotta go." I was like, "That's crazy, Mom. Where am I gonna go?" And
How
sure
old
enough,
were you then?
15.
15.
I couldn't believe my mom's telling me I gotta go, and I didn't have anywhere to go, and we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have cell phones, so
you didn't have pagers.
Yeah, and then we didn't have pagers then. And so I sleep in a park. So now I can sleep in a park, and so now my life, like the next year, is like sleeping in parks or sleeping at a friend's house, whoever will let me. I'm the trouble kid. I'm the kid that looks like a boy that's on drugs and drinking. So parents didn't want me around. So my friends would sneak me in, or I'd sleep in cars till it's time to get up. Just things like that. So that life just gets really stressful for me. And at 16, I asked my mom if she could send me to Honduras for the Christmas vacation, which wasn't odd. We would, before, they would send us down there. That's where she's from.
Okay.
So I go down there, and right away, I tell my aunt, "Hey, I'm ripping up my passport. I ain't going home." And everyone's freaking out, like, what's going on? Because obviously our family would portray this amazing family, and just this, and I'm down there now just spitting it out. No, this is what's going on, and my dad, and I'm sharing all the dirty secrets of the family, and so I ended up staying there for like 10 months. I did my junior high school year there, and life was good. I was happy, and I come back home, though. Once school, came out, my mom's like, "Okay, you got to come back," and so I come back home.
No, when did you see that religious stuff?
There in Honduras, in Honduras, the Pope John Paul II comes to visit. This was back in '83, and so they take us to go see him, and I'm in the car, and I'm looking at all these pilgrims, they call them, and dude, and these people are like whipping themselves with like cat o' nine tails, bleeding, with nailed to crosses, walking, kneeling, crawling on their knees, and bleeding. And I'm like, oh, wow. And mind you, the perspective I've had of God at that point was Jesus on the cross, all bloody. I was going to Catholic. I grew up Catholic, and we went to church every Sunday. And all I could think about this God, he's so mean. He, has his son up there, bloody, bruised. And it actually reminded me of my parents, who I was so afraid of.
Yeah.
So it was like, God is just like my parents.
And then the son's crucified, all bloody, hanging.
Yeah, hanging.
Yeah, that's gnarly.
And then now I see these people, and I ask, like, hey, what is that?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, they probably got relatives in purgatory, or they're going to go there, or they haven't been able to do enough to get their sins forgiven. So they're doing that for that, or to pray someone out of purgatory. Because for the Catholic, purgatory is that place you go to when you can't get to heaven. Right. And you can't get to heaven unless somebody back home is like praying you out. It's crazy.
One thing that Satan has always done from the beginning of time, and he still does it today, as he does that, he distorts God's character.
Yeah.
Yep.
In the Garden of Eden, did the same thing. Did God really say? He knows that the day you eat, you're going to be able to know good and evil. He's trying to keep you away from something that's good for you. And it's always painting a picture of that. Or then other things like God's against you. And you see that all the way through the Old Testament, New Testament. And then in our culture today, there's a lot of people that have a misconception of God. And so they think that they can't be accepted by God. That a picture as a young kid thinking, well, I got to do all of this kind of ritual stuff to be right with God. And why would a God that's so loving have people do such grotesque things to be right with him? It's a struggling factor. You're like, well, I'll never get to that level anyway, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a burden that the enemy tries to put on ourselves. And it, for a lot of people, so many times, right? They're like talking about like, man, I'd like to go to church, but then I got to change this, change that, and all that kind of stuff, all this works-based stuff. Don't realize the grace of God, which we're going to talk about.
Well, we're going to be going to break here in about 1 minute, so let's, we're going to be coming back. But Sean,
let me plug a couple things. One, if you are tuning in right now, you can always watch us live at RyanReese.com. Ryan's always teaching at the Shine at 7 p.m. in Costa Mesa, at the Cares building, and also on Sunday nights at 6 p.m. at Calvary Chapel, Golden Springs, but also with the Whosoevers. We encourage you guys hear so much about the Whosoevers throughout the show. Go to thewhosoevers.com to stay connected with everything that's taking place. Follow on all the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. But on the website, you'll see all the new product that's out, and all the product, shirts, T-shirts, sweatshirts, all the accessories, hats. All the proceeds from that go straight back into the movement, so that Ryan and these guys can continue doing the ministry of stuff that God's like laid upon their heart, such as the Kill the Noise tour. There's been so many amazing stories. I know Ryan will be talking about these stories throughout these shows coming up. With what God's doing in the public high schools here in Southern California. And we've been able to, there's a sound system that we have, and all these things that we take a step of faith to get. We just pray that people would join arms with us in prayer. You believe in the movement, you want to donate to the cause, you can go right there onto our website and keep up to speed with everything that's taking place with the Whosoevers.
Hey, it's been radical. We went to a school not too long ago, Patriot High School. We had hundreds of kids there. 90% or more of the kids gave their life to the Lord. It's just amazing. So,
nice.
Get involved.
Yeah. We'll be back on the other side.
More Live with Ryan Ries coming up.
Is everything all right?
Call now 1-888-564-6173 or post your questions using the hashtag #LiveRyanReese on his Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.
I think I speak for the entire administration when I say whoop-de-doo.
Now, back to Live with Ryan Ries. Don't say we didn't warn you. Loud noises!
It is going down tonight. We got Amor out from Miami Tattoo Co. in South Beach, Florida. She's just talking about her story of coming out of homosexuality and rape and sexual abuse and drugs and coming from a broken home and just all this dysfunctional stuff and how the enemy was just moving in on her ever since she was 7 to 8 years old. And now we're at the point where we got to the point where she's in, where was it
Honduras.
again?
Honduras.
Yeah.
She got some time away. She went away to be with some of the family out there for about 10 months.
Yeah.
And while she was there, it was an interesting encounter from a religious standpoint. Her coming from a background of Catholicism, and then over there, seeing those who by their religious acts, some of it, they're crawling on their knees. They are, hitting themselves with whips and everything. And all of these things of kind of showing of like their remorse for their sin and everything. But it can twist someone's mind because, and that's what we were talking about right before the break, is how the enemy always wants to distort the character of God. And that's the main thing. That's what started to impact your life. You know, you already felt lonely and everything. And now your idea of God, the one that could help you in your situation, is all messed up.
Yeah.
What you said at Shine on Thursday night is that you said that these people that were whipping themselves and walking on their knees, it was like a 3 or 5 mile walk.
Yeah.
And there was blood
Blood
all up and down the street.
Yeah.
So now you're looking towards God and you're seeing these religious people making themselves like a bloodbath.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what you were going through with your mom. Your mom was beating you till you would get bloody, lock you up in the closet, tie you up, and the whole stuff.
Yeah.
And now you're looking at the one that could save you, and you're like, man, that's just as messed up. And like you even said too, growing up in the church, in the Catholic Church, you see Jesus all bloody hanging on the cross.
Yep.
You don't know about the resurrection
At all.
So
At all.
the whole thing just looks horrible.
With
Yeah.
no hope.
No hope at all. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely no hope. Insane. But and I'll share about that, because that view that I had of God really molds a lot of what I end up going through at this next phase of my life. Because up until believe it or not, up until this point, life was still good.
Yeah.
As bad as it was, it wasn't yet my darkness and my turmoil. That was just about to start.
Let's get into it.
So I get back from Honduras, and
you're what? How old again? You're 15?
at this point, no. Now I'm now I'm about 17. I'm about to turn 17. I'm 17. I get back from Honduras, and I am staying at friends' houses. But I go to visit one of my friends, and we're just talking, and she's just filling me in on everything that's gone on while I've been gone. And all of a sudden she says, yeah, so-and-so and so-and-so, 2 girls, they're girlfriends now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're girlfriends. Like boyfriend and girlfriend?
Yeah, so this wasn't, at that time, homosexuality wasn't out in the open.
At all.
So it's like, what, they're girlfriends? That's crazy.
That's insane. Yeah, that stuff, it was not out there. And if you were gay, I didn't even know that gay existed, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's not like today, you just didn't know. And so I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, man, they've been together like 5 months. You didn't know? I'm like, no. She goes, come on, Amor. You're gay too. And I'm like, no, honestly.
Yeah, I know.
I wasn't. And I'm like, no. And she's like, yeah, you are. Everyone says so. That's why you left, because you're gay. Everyone says so. And I was just mad. I mean, I wanted to fight her, and I left. And
the reason, for listeners that just might have tuned in at the break, the reason why they think that is because you were getting raped and abused ever since you were young. So you started gaining weight. You were like looking dirty, looking kind of like a bum pretty much. So no guy would be attracted to you.
Yeah.
So that's why now your friends are all like, yeah, you're gay because you look like a dude or whatever.
Yeah. I'm a tomboy.
So you're not.
I'm not gay, but I'm a tomboy. I look like I'm gay, but I'm not. And she says that. And dude, so I left, went wherever it was I was staying that day. But then what ends up happening is now all this lie that had been implanted in me for the last 8 years, 7, 8 years, the are you a boy? Men abusing, I'm like a piece of trash, this whole thing. So now I start thinking, and I'm justifying, and I'm like, maybe I am gay. This makes sense to me now. Okay, so now I start thinking maybe I am, I'm not, but maybe I am. And now this is going to start making sense to me. And so I start trying to find a way to start hanging out with those friends, the gay girls that they told me about. And I start hanging out with them. And I'll tell you that initially it was just like very innocent. I mean, just girls, and I was hanging out with the girls, nothing sexual, nothing like that. I felt safe. Yeah. I felt like I belonged, actually.
Yeah.
I felt okay. And it was neat. It was cool. Then I meet a woman who had been gay for a long time, and that's when it starts, like the sexual relationship. It was very weird to me at first. I definitely didn't feel like it was natural. I wasn't comfortable with it. I really wasn't comfortable with sex, period. But now I'm into a sexual relationship with a woman, and so now I'm kind of in turmoil now. I started having that inner battle about God, because being raised Catholic, there's God, heaven, hell.
Gay and all that. It's just all.
Yeah, now, I start kind of like, coming into this darkness, into this turmoil, start doing more drugs to be able to enjoy the sex, I guess. Also,
you have to numb yourself.
Yeah, I had to numb myself. Yeah. Also, that one abuser of mine started showing me pornography around 13, 14 years old.
The guy used to, abuse you.
And so that just messed my mind up. So now I'm getting raped, I'm on drugs, I'm getting beat. I have this warped mind. He's showing me pornography, then he's showing me gay men pornography. Just so my mind.
When you were 14?
Yeah. So my mind is warped.
Yeah.
So now I'm having these sexual relations with women that I feel aren't normal, and again, warped mind from it. So I fall into more drugs, heavier drugs. A lot of rage, man. I had a lot of anger. I was that kind of person that I couldn't see glass. I would punch the walls. If my knuckles weren't bloody, something was wrong. And then liking that pain, because also at that point I'm cutting too. Right. Having seen the pilgrims in Honduras, the Catholics, and the blood, it was something that now I wanted to start doing. So I'm going through all this turmoil, I'm thinking I could cut, and maybe that's some kind of works that I can get to God.
Tell me about cutting, because there's a lot of people that cut. Why? What does it do for someone that cuts? So there's like a listener listening going, why do people cut? It doesn't make sense. They cut. What? How does it work mentally?
Cutting. Okay, so I'm seeing the blood already. I'm punching things. I'm cutting myself like that. It's not bad. That pain feels good because I'm just have so much emotional pain that honestly the physical pain can't even put a Band-Aid over the emotional pain. So again, all that stuff. So, there was one day I accidentally cut myself with a razor blade. And at that point, I mean, I don't know what men do to shave now, but I knew those blades with those old school. And I accidentally cut myself and it didn't hurt me. It didn't hurt me and I'm bleeding. I was like, wow. So I actually get that and I just start like cutting myself and bleeding. And the feeling I got, it was similar to when my mom gave me the Valium, because now I'm like, A, I'm controlling it myself. Yeah. So I'm controlling the pain. But B, it's helping me numb the other pain and seeing the blood.
So cutting, you have so much emotional pain that cutting physically, it gets your mind off of the emotional. Yeah. To see to feel the physical. Yeah. So you switch one pain for another. Yeah. Because a lot of people don't know why people cut. And I've heard this several times.
And one thing that she said too, which I hear often, is that it's the one kind of pain that you're in control of.
I'm in control of it. And granted, back then, again, man, society and the lies that TV and magazines and social media are putting on us. I mean, back then we were cutting, but no one knew. Yeah. It was internal. That was for me. That was my pain. And that's what I was doing. So, I mean, I was always covered up and no one knew. That was my secret. And that was my fix and my solution. That was my drug, but it's what helped me. It was as crazy as it sounds. It's what helps me.
I believe it. I've heard a lot of stories of the same
The only
stuff.
problem with that is that what ends up happening is then that pain, then the pain is still so overwhelming that just cutting alone doesn't take it away. Yeah. And then the next is suicide attempts. Exactly. And that happened for me.
So, okay, so from there, the cutting wasn't enough?
Cutting wasn't enough.
Now suicidal thoughts?
Suicidal thoughts and that one attempt of cutting, you go a little too far.
So you went for it?
Yeah, so I went for it. So that was my first suicide attempt. I was like 19 years old. Again, now I've got this high pain tolerance from my mom beating me. Because eventually with my mom beating me, it got to a point that I would just be like, yeah, go ahead, hit me.
Just tough it out,
Just go. Just hit me, and I knew, and then just as the older I got, it just got to that point, and so I have a high tolerance for pain, and I'm clubbing, already by 17. Once I got into the gay life and started dating that woman, it was like the nightclubs, but now I become the person at the bar that's always getting into the fight. Yeah. And the first time I got into a fight, it was crazy. I got into a fight with this other woman about something, and I remember grabbing a beer bottle and just going like this. And breaking it on my head, right on my head.
On your head?
On my own head. Crazy. Yeah. And blood, bleeding. And again, that was a thing like, okay, I dig this. And so I'm fighting with people all the time. I was getting kicked out of clubs because of the fighting. Yeah. And I'm fighting. So I get into extreme fitness. I get into martial arts. I start doing taekwondo and do that for several years just so I can last longer in the fight. I'm not looking to kick no one's butt. I'm just looking to last longer in the fight because I want to be hit. So I'm purposely starting fights because I want to be hit. I want to get hit in the face. I want to feel that blood. I just want to feel it. And so, again, warped.
Yeah, warped.
Very warped. Yeah. And so, again, that's, that lifestyle I'm feeling. I'm living a gay life. I don't want to be gay. I just want a normal life, man. Yeah. At that point, man, I wanted a husband. I wanted a family. I wanted kids. I wanted everything society says is normal, to be married. I wanted that. So I could tell you that during that time, because there's like 2 phases of my gay lifestyle. That first phase, during that time, I was a closet heterosexual. Yeah. Which when I look back now, I'm like, I'm living this gay life.
That's a trip.
But deep down inside,
that's a trip.
I want to be straight. Deep down inside, I want to have what everybody has, man. I want to have this family.
For those that are tuning in right now, this is a pretty gnarly story. I know it's going to get a lot gnarlier how we close out this show here tonight. But we have Amor in the studio, a close friend of ours that's out in Florida. You're hearing her story, and she's just kind of opening up. how she went through so much physical abuse as a young girl, verbal abuse, and then sexual abuse, being raped, being molested at the ages of 7, 8 years old, and then coming over to her teenage years and going through many other things, pornography, seeing all forms of pornography at a young age, all these things distorting her mind, and then visiting with family over in Honduras and seeing this kind of impact of this religiosity stuff and maybe something she didn't want in her life, and a confusion of who God was. And then as she had tried to mask her beauty through gaining weight and putting on clothes and kind of being a tomboy, so guys, when it bugged her so much, she found herself getting involved in a homosexual lifestyle. And her first stint that she's talking about right now is like she was fighting, she was kind of living this homosexual lifestyle because she had felt pressured that that's maybe who she was, but she's fighting with the reality that she believes she's straight too. And so why don't you tell about that battle and kind of pick up right where you're at?
Yeah, because we have 15 minutes left, and this was the first phase of being a homosexual.
Yeah.
And let's talk about you coming out and going back in, and then you come back out, because
it's crazy. It's crazy. So
let's wrap that in the next 15.
So
it's important.
Long story short. So again, I try to calm myself, and there's a story of I'm smoking crack for like 4 days in a crack house, and I hear an audible voice, kind of like God saying, "Hey, Amor, stop doing that. I love you." And I'm tripping, wondering, is that really God? And at that point, I really want to do a good life. I want to get fixed, whatever that case might be. And at the end of 1986, I end up having like 3 car accidents back to back. Third one, I end up in a gas pump, have to get extricated. I end up with PTSD in a hospital. And I end up taking a whole bottle of pills again because I want to die, man. I just want to die. My life sucks. I want to die. I end up Baker acted in a mental institution. Finally get out of there, still wanting to reach God, and not even 2 days I get out of this place, I end up getting run over by a car and dragged. I mean, I'm mega injured, and it was at that point in time that I was like, there is no God, and God doesn't love me, and I didn't hear from God, because if God loved me, I don't understand why up until this point, I'm 22 years old, and I've lived this life. There cannot be a God. So, long story short, I end up in a rehab the following year. Next year after that, I had quit my job, and I had gotten a job, and then I had quit it. And now I'm working in the apartment industry, and I meet this lady who comes to sign a lease for her sons. And she just looks at me and she's like, "Hey, do you know Jesus?" And I'm like, "No, man, I want to know Jesus." At this point, I'm clean and sober. I had gotten out of the rehab. I'm clean and sober. Now she's talking to me. I'm trying to live a life. At this point, I'm trying, the people I'm with don't know my history. I'm trying to stay away from the gay people. I'm trying to date guys I can, but she takes me in to live in her house. She finds out I don't have a place to live, this and that. She disciples me. I give my life to the Lord, start going to church. Life is awesome. I get promoted, get my own place. She helps her family. Like, I have this first sense of a real family. Helps me move out, all that stuff. I moved to a different county, and then Hurricane Andrew hits. So their house gets destroyed, and they have to leave the city for a while. Right. And so I lose track of her. So I start going to another church, though, not the same church I was with. And then I run into all the religious Christians, the ones that, "Oh, no, please stop telling people you were gay. Oh, no, don't talk about abuse. Don't talk about divorce." So I'm like, what is this?
Basically, your testimony. People are just like, no, don't talk about that. No. Like, hide it all. That's weird.
Yeah. Oh, no. And so now I'm feeling judged by Christians. Mm-hmm. So long story short, I end up being like the seed and the thorns. Cares of the world, deceitfulness of wealth. Because the cares of the world, all these Christians at me still struggling, me still kind of hurting, and now learning about God.
You come from straight out of hell and back.
Yeah. And then trying to understand this forgiveness. Well, how can I forgive the guys who raped me, and how can I forgive my mom for being so horrible? And now I'm getting all this Christian, so I completely backslide, become an atheist.
Because the church doesn't even want nothing to do with you.
The church doesn't want nothing to do with me, man. Yeah. They don't want nothing to do with me, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't want nothing to do with that Jesus either then. That's not true, I go completely atheist. Now it's early 90s. And now all of a sudden, national TV, a female actress comes out and says she's gay. That was the biggest news ever at that time. And I start, it's acceptable. Then they start saying there's a gene and people are born that way, which actually it's not true.
Yeah,
and if you really look
false.
at it turned out to be false. If you look at the research, that's a lie. But now I start, whoa, and back again to those lies, the thoughts captive. Now I'm like, wait a minute. Now this is all making sense. I was gay. I'm a boy. I'm this, I'm that. Oh my God. Now I'm like almost free, believe it or not, thinking, I am gay. Everything everyone has saying is true. So I go complete 180. Now I'm gay, out and proud. I come out to my family. I was estranged from my family, but the first thing I wanted to go and tell them is, hey, I'm gay.
I'm gay. Yeah.
I come out to the place I'm working at, and you got to accept me. It is what it is. And then my mentality became, I got my job. I own my own house now, because by this point now I own a house. I mean, like, life is good, all those externals, and no one pays my bills, so I'm going to be gay. So I get back into the drugs, but now it's like the social drugs, the ecstasy, the acid, that.
You're living like the lifestyle party.
I'm living the party lifestyle.
Yes.
And I get so into the rave scene and so into the social drug scene that now I have a great corporate job Monday through Friday. But now I go as far as, now I'm working in the clubs. Now I'm working in the circuits and the clubs on Miami Beach. I start off as a bartender, do awesome. Because I had that experience in fighting in the martial arts, I'm head of security. I'm doing all this, and living this life. The most popular, I look like a man, and I'll show you some pictures.
Oh, man,
saw
I've
them.
seen the pictures. You look straight, dude.
Okay, I look straight like a man. I'm living a life like if I was a man, actually.
Yeah.
And with this transgender, with this whole lie thing, I'll tell you that if at that point in time I had the money to do a sex op, I would have done it. Because
Dude,
in my mindset, my mind, I believed I was a man trapped in a woman's body, because it's now society's telling me I was born that way, and now I'm creating this. It's making sense, man. It's making sense.
That puts things into perspective. Now when we see these lesbians that are walking around that look like dudes, now it's like now because you kind of go, that's crazy. I wonder what's going on in their heads,
Yeah.
Well, there it is. They think they're a man.
I thought I was a man, and society was cool with it. And then I'm going to show you pictures because you haven't seen them. And
we have 90 minutes left too.
All right,
so.
and society's cool with it. And look at that, man.
Oh, no way.
Look at that. So society's cool with it. So
and you're dating like a girl.
Oh, dude, I'm
that
dating.
looks like a little hot chick.
Oh yeah, no.
And you look like a dude.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a trip.
Yeah,
So tell us how.
So anyway, fast forward. I'm living the life. I'm super popular. I'm hanging out with the club I worked at across the street from where I have the shop now. I mean, I'm hanging out with Madonna.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm popular.
That's where South Beach is.
I've got it made. I've got everything.
Satan gave you everything you wanted.
Everything, dude. I'm making money. Got a house. Got a beautiful girlfriend. Everything. And I don't need anything. I don't even need God. And then one day in 2002, bro, I'm at work in my office, beautiful office. I mean, everything was amazing. In my office, it's after hours. I'm hearing a scuffle in the outer office. And I go out there like, what's going on? And it's my girlfriend, another employee of mine. Her husband had come picked her up. They're young kids, 19, 20 years old. They had just become Christians. And I knew it, and I'm making fun of them. But my girlfriend's making fun of him. And I'm like, what's up? And she's like, look at his shirt. It says, ask me about the gospel. But he can't tell me. So I'm like, come on, Christian. Tell her. And he couldn't, dude. And man, out of nowhere, I start the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ. And it's told in the book of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, how God sent his son, Jesus Christ, to this earth, died on a cross, was raised on the third day for the forgiveness of our sins. I go into the parable of the sower. I'm like, and now God's working on me. Like, I'm feeling just the scales come off my eyes. They're looking at me. They're freaking out. And I go in my office, get my
been amazing
bag,
to be there
bro,
at that point.
dude, get my bag, come out, tell my girlfriend, let's go. I get in the car. She slams the door. She's like, what? What in the world? We don't talk about God. We don't believe in God. And I'm like, and while this is going on, man, I'm replaying my life. And I'm seeing all the abuse, but what I'm seeing is Jesus there watching me and taking care of me. And I get now today that the stuff that happened to me wasn't God wanting that to happen to me. He was there and he was hurting. But we live in a fallen world and there's a lot of sin and there's a lot of demonic out here, you know, but I'm seeing that. And my girlfriend's like mad. And
your girlfriend's Jewish too.
Well, my girlfriend was raised Jewish. She's not practicing, but she's raised Jewish, and that's a whole other amazing story.
Yeah.
And I just look over at her, and I'm like, I think I used to be a Christian, you know. And long story short, I'm just dying to get home because I know I gotta have a Bible somewhere, and I do find it in the shed. I start reading the Bible. From that day on, I moved into the guest bedroom. You know, she kept the master bedroom. Long story short, she ends up getting radically saved, trying to prove me wrong. Jesus works in her life. She's married, has kids. She's amazing. I mean,
that's what God does.
Dude, the crazy thing is all my girlfriends, except for one who passed away, have now given their life to the Lord. Wow. And my gay friends from back then, because God took me out of the gay lifestyle, had me get strong in the Lord, and today some of my gay friends, they're coming around and they're beginning to come to church and get radically saved, and just saying that your story and watching you the last 14 years have made me. So I mean, it just happened last Sunday at church, so it's crazy. But so anyway, so I'm home, I start reading, and a month after this, I'm still struggling. God changed me, but he transformed me, but I still needed to renew my mind. I still needed to start living a godly life, and I'm still struggling. I'm struggling with pornography. I'm still struggling with stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
Most people, people that are into that do.
Yeah, but one day I'm reading Matthew 19 a month later, and Jesus talks about, the disciples are talking about marriage, how bad it is, and why should people get married? And Jesus, and I'll paraphrase this, man, says, you know what? Some are born to be single. He calls them eunuchs. Some are made that way by men, but others have chosen to be single, to serve God. And for me, because another lie, I grew up also believing man was not meant to live alone. So with that, you need to get married. You need to get married. You need to get that pressure that you have to get married. So I'm struggling with, I can't be with a man, so I have to be with a woman. You know, again, more warped stuff. And honestly, the minute I read where Jesus says, to him who's been called, let him accept that call, I promise you, it was like the Matrix. I was no longer gay, dude. No longer gay. It was amazing. Wow. And ever since then, that was 14 years ago, dude.
14 years.
14 years ago.
We have a few minutes, not even a few minutes, we have like 30 seconds
30
left.
seconds.
Any last words for anyone that's listening, that's struggling with this?
Do not believe the lies that society says. Do not believe that's not who we are. You are not. Your identity isn't on who society says you are. Social media, Facebook, magazines, movies. You're who God says you are. There's so many scriptures in the Bible about your identity, about who you are and who you were created to be, and you have to trust him. He will change you. He will not leave you there. He didn't leave me there. I wasn't looking for him, and he came and got me.
Amor, amazing. You guys can find Amor at Amor
Sierra
on Instagram.
Yeah, AMORSIERRA.
We love you.
All right.
Love you too.
Peace.
This has been Live with Ryan Ries. To connect or find out more about Ryan, click on ryan-reese.com. Check us out next Saturday at 9 p.m.
That's a live.
for Live with Ryan Ries.